Hi, welcome to Chez, Fleur podcast, where we meet with interesting, fascinating, busy, industrious women in small business, whether they're doing something in their home or whether they're traveling the world. It's great to hear what small business is doing in this country. And we have an amazing guest in Tiffany, who I'm going to introduce in a minute. If you are watching us for the first time, we welcome you. If you're here for a return visit, thank you for watching again. We love to have you with us. I've got Tiffany with me today, and she is a force of nature. And she just, she's got a great story, and I'm not going to talk too much about her, and we're going to turn it over. Tiffany, I first met you when you worked at the Chamber of Commerce. And was that sort of your first introduction to small business?
No. So my birth mother was actually a business owner, and she would go to these different shows and like cart me around to different trade shows, which was really, really interesting and definitely gave me a competitive edge in adult life. And then one of my first careers, actually, I was hired right out of my internship at Fleming College. With a local guy named Cam Taylor, who owned a business called Boat Smart Canada that helped people get their boating licenses. And he ended up rebranding to Outdoor Smart, all that good stuff. But that's really where it started, because he would just include me in all of the challenges that he was having in business. And quite often would call me into his office and he'd kind of show me what he was doing. And he, as typical entrepreneur, he did like everything in the business, from QuickBooks to creating graphics to coordinating the schedules.
To
But
taking
yeah,
out the
that
garbage.
taking out the garbage, that's right, handling staff problems. But yeah, that's where my first taste of it came from. And then with the spa Euphoria, one of the top 50 spas in Canada, actually, when I was there. But we lots of business owners kind of coming in and out in there. And then again, that situation where the owner, Simone Dobson, just kind of opened up that runway for me. As entrepreneurs do, we typically get a bit of a gray area as employees to kind of play in, right? And yeah, she just let me be the voice and the face of the spa. And she'd be like, hey, I've got a TV spot, a commercial spot, whatever it is. And she would just kind of plug me into that space. And yeah, I mean, I think my biggest insights came from Cam and Simone. And then by the time I had gone to the chamber, I'd been at the spa for almost 10 years. So I knew a good chunk of the business community by then, which kind of gave me a bit of a competitive edge, I think, when employment opened up at the chamber.
So the chamber would have helped you meet even more businesses in more diverse types of businesses.
Absolutely. Yeah, I kind of got a flavor for the industrial businesses because I had sort of been with like SMEs up until that point. So sort of those bigger corporations and industries I kind of opened up to, and like Peterborough Map Boards, it's been in Peterborough forever, who have like a really, really cool story, hundreds of staff. But yeah, it just kind of exposed me further. And luckily I was under some really great leadership, Stuart Harrison, who gave me a runway. I love nothing more I love than a gray area. Like where you can try different things, throw different blue sky ideas out there, and they don't squash it. They really kind of foster that, and give you that space. We always called it like box style management, which was like, this is the list of things I want to get done. I'm going to put you in this box. I don't care what you do in that box to get it done. As long as I get the result on the other side, I'll be happy. And for a person like me, that's like the perfect management leadership style, to get me to flex my creativity and kind of go for the gold.
So I'm going to make a guess here that membership with the chamber grew significantly under your leadership, with membership engagement and retention. Just guessing.
At that time, it was a team effort. We had Sandra Dewick, CM Grobler, Shelby Parker, Kathleen Thompson. We eventually ended up getting Olivia in there too. But yeah, Cy and I in 2018 did significant work to really, it was retention actually that we worked the most on, was just really fostering those relationships and honestly changing the way things were sold. Up until that point, chamber memberships were like very transactional. So businesses would get their membership and be like, oh, you didn't share my social media post, or I didn't get this in the newsletter. But That's like a perk to membership and not what the chamber actually focuses on. They are an advocacy group for businesses. So they reduce red tape, challenges, friction locally, provincially, federally. And Cy and I changed that narrative to get people to believe in the mission of the work that the chamber does. And once we got them in that mindset, they ended up just staying. So I'm very, very, very fortunate to have had that relationship, I think, with my co-working team. And then Cy is absolute genius. So he was kind of the one that introduced me to sort of consciously this mission-based sales, which I sort of had sales experience before. Of course, I mean, you don't sell a few $600 eye creams without learning a couple things about how to sell them. But kind of
True.
taking those tricks and applying it. It's like those same little tricks will kind of work depending, no matter what industry you're in. So really shifting the narrative around what chamber membership was and what it actually meant to belong. And really, it's a not-for-profit, it's a professional development tax write-off. The base membership's like $350. But even now, I left the chamber 2 years ago. So now I'm with Gauvreau accounting, tax law advisory. I don't do any tax law bookkeeping, or I do a little bit of advising, I guess. But I'm their community manager. So I actually take care of all of the members that we have in a coaching program there called the $1 Million Year program. And again, I get to foster that community and just rally and bring people together and make them feel special and heard and supported. And I absolutely love it. So yeah, and it's sort of those same mission concepts that applied at the spa with the eye cream and at the chamber with the members, also applicable to the members that I coach in our program currently.
Beautiful. Beautiful. How much fun are you having? Holy smokes.
I love it. Like there is nothing more than I love than business owners. They're just a very, very special breed. And I think they're underrated. I think a lot of people see business owners, assume that every business owner is rich, assume that every business owner has all these, it's like the must be nice mentality, right? And I think a lot of people don't realize like, oh, well, these business owners work 90 hours a week. They're on call 24/7. There's very few boundaries, especially in those first 5 to 7 years. Lots of burnout, all of that, to be considered. And I mean, really, local small businesses, they're really the ones that fuel communities, right? Like they're the ones sponsoring local sports teams, local not-for-profits. Like they're the ones that show up to these events, that support, that hand the money over, that help different social services and organizations and communities. So business is really the backbone of community. And because my community was probably the first space I ever felt welcome and felt like I could be myself. I think that's why I invest so much into the community and the business community, so much of my energy.
Beautiful. Tell me about the Tiffany show.
The Tiffany show was a passion project. So in one of the years of COVID, when I was with the chamber, it was like I just kept thinking about this show and how I've always wanted to have my own talk show. Like when I was a little girl, I would pretend I was on the shopping channel selling things. Like I would pretend I had my own talk show. Like we all watched Jenny and Ricky Lake and and the one with the red glasses. What was her name? I want to say Rafaela.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right. So I grew up in the 90s watching all of that. So and I was involved in theater when I was a kid. I was enrolled in the Great Big Theater Company acting classes like after school. And so I guess I always just kind of had that bit of pop. And one day in COVID, I was like, I really want to start my own show. In the middle of the night, I was like, I'm going to call it the Tiffany Show, and I'm going to work it to be like sort of this variety show, which is sort of the end game. Right now, I'm still in the infancy stage, and I'm a solo operation. So I actually do all the recording, all the editing, the producing, everything to do with the show from front to end. I do myself. And yeah, so I think I talked about it for like 6 months when finally Stu Harrison was like, he came in my office. I was like, I've got this other idea. And he's like, Tiff, I think you just need to stop waiting for things to be perfect. And sometimes you just got to take the shot. You just got to jump and figure it out on your way down. You're getting way too caught in the weeds trying to like plan every little piece of this show that you want to do. And I think you just need to do it. So I did it. and I just started recording. My first guest was Miriam Monsef, and she's just absolutely such a gem of a human being. Yeah, just put it on social media for like a few episodes. And then I got a call from Kojiko Your TV asking me if I would be on their Your Peterborough show. And then we wrapped up like a season of that. And at the end of that season, they were like, now can we talk about the Tiffany show? They took it on. So they took season one. The season was actually supposed to end a few months ago, but I got a call. They asked to extend it to the end of July, and then season two kicks off at in September. And yeah, so it runs on Your TV Kojiko. It's bi-weekly, again, because I'm a solo operation and it's just a insane amount of work. Absolutely worth it, and I totally love it. But really, honestly, the driving force behind it was media is just saturated in negativity. And I find kind of you don't even have to look for it to be bombarded by it. And I felt like there just wasn't enough spotlight on human connection and human beings and the stories and the journeys that we go through. We all have a story. We all have a little trauma nugget in the closet. But a lot of us just kind of go through these challenges thinking that we're alone, believing that we're alone. So I felt personally driven to open up and talk about my own journey, which then kind of led me to this direction of sharing other people's stories and having them share their struggles and their challenges, and in hopes of helping other people, and in a positive, safe space where they're welcome and accepted for those stories. And it's really interesting now, about like almost a year into it, with AI kind of on the rise and the big fear of us losing human connection because of AI. So now more than ever, and I do see this trend happening, is shows like the Tiffany show, initiatives like the Tiffany show that really showcase the human side of connection and human beings. And I feel really driven by that. And I feel like it's very important that we keep that lens and keep that authenticity and vulnerability, because that breeds connection and it really does strengthen community.
So well said, and it's so true. And you don't, like you say, you don't have to look far to find negative. You
No.
really, you really don't. And
And
you know,
especially in social media, like whatever you're consuming, you're getting fed, right? So, I mean, even if you accidentally click on those negative articles and you're reading them, like that leaves a little note that trickles all this other content to come your way, right? So, I'm very, very conscious of what I consume. I do keep a very tight line on what news I do consume and what outlets I consume it from. And because like I said, you basically are what you eat, right? Like
yeah, it's true. It's
and so
true.
yeah, and it can very passively, and yeah, I mean not even consciously, um it can affect you without noticing, kind of on the outside, on a deeper level, just kind of being fed that stuff. I mean, I've told this story before, but even with television, like I won't watch horror. I don't watch horror. I don't watch anything with murder. I don't watch violence. Like none of that comes into my space. It's like, you know what? I'm stressed out enough as it is. Entertainment should be entertaining, and not and not the opposite. So it's like all Hallmark movies and reality TV basically.
Good, good. It's and you need to set boundaries everywhere, because like we said earlier, the negativity is everywhere.
Really and truly.
So on the Tiffany show, who was the most fascinating or amazing person that you have interviewed?
Honestly, they've all been really special. Like they've all opened up and shared things that they maybe not would not have shared with other people, even in other interviews. And I don't know if that's because of the connection that I've sort of fostered with them, and I just kind of make them feel safe and secure in that space to share. But like I've had stories from everybody, and I mean the police chief that I just put out a few weeks ago. I thought that was really significant. I felt like a lot of people can make very quick judgments about individuals and not really know kind of what goes on underneath, or what goes on for them to get where they are. So I think it's really important and really special that he shared with us that he was, single mother. He didn't have much growing up. He knows what it's like to go to a food bank. He knows what it's like to go to friends' houses and be fed. Food insecurity was one of his big challenges. And he's just kind of scratching the surface of the other individuals that I've interviewed. I mean, I interviewed a single mother who lost her partner while she was still pregnant. I've had, a local author who had to flee a domestic violence situation with 4 children. One of them weren't hers, but she took that child with her to that safe space at the YWCA to recover and rebuild her life. And I mean, I even had another guest whose mother very, very sadly had committed suicide a few months prior to our interview, and he opened up and shared that story and shared the reason why he had launched a big event kind of around a celebration for her. And it's really beautiful, and I think it's really important for people in the community to see those stories, but they're all significant, and I
Yeah.
couldn't flag just one of them. They all contribute something special. It just depends on who they're speaking to.
Yeah. It's amazing what road takes, what roads lead people forward, and you hear that in their stories.
You really do. Those those catalyst moments that, it's like those moments on the bathroom floor when you're like, I can't do this anymore. And that little voice is like, get up. You got to get up. Keep going. And to hear these different people tell their different stories and situations of how they got to the point where they had to lift themselves up and keep going is just really motivating and inspiring. And it's a really beautiful thing. And it's part of the legacy that I hope to leave behind.
That's a good segue into my next question. You obviously promote and support women. You have created an International Women's Day event. Tell us about that.
I did. So this year, a local organization had set up an International Women's Day event, and there was a big situation that happened, and unfortunately, it had to be canceled last minute. And when I saw that happen, I was like, oh boy. Okay, well, what else is happening in the community for International Women's Day then? And I started sniffing around, and the more I sniffed around, the more I saw that nothing was happening. There was like a couple things. There was something happening at night at one of the local coffee shops, and that was honestly basically it. And so I was like, we can't just let International Women's Day come and go in our community and do nothing. So I said, even if I just put word out and have a bunch of people come for coffee and maybe we sit around in a circle and maybe we tell each other what we appreciate about each other, or maybe we share a story about ourselves to kind of, inspire others. Even if 10 people show up, I'll be happy because at least we did something rather than nothing. Uh, I'll never forget it. I had a conversation with one of my mentors. I'm like, this is what I'm thinking. That mentor was like, whoa, there's a bit of a sticky situation with how this other event got canceled. I caution you to just do this the right way, be very cognizant of who you're plugging into the space. And I was like, yep, nope, I totally agree. And I said, like, would I have your blessing? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. I think you should do it. So I'm like, all right. I went 2 hours later. I had sent a whole bunch of messages out. I got 5 speakers secured. I had a venue secured. Kojiko stepped up and sponsored the event. They paid for the food. They paid for a bunch of the, oh my gosh, I cannot explain. I put out a social media video that was like, I'm going to do this thing. Are there any businesses that are interested maybe in supporting, this initiative? And I cannot believe who came out of the woodwork. I had Trent Valley Honda stepped up, Rickart stepped up, Aggie Lucier stepped up. I actually woke up one Saturday morning to a $500 e-transfer in my in my bank account from somebody. I've never met them before. They sent me a message. They were like, I saw your video, use this money, go buy something. And then I went out and reached out to one of the local businesses, Tragically Dipped, and had him make a whole bunch of custom donuts for the day. But it was epic. I sent out a press release. There was like 150 people actually showed up. We packed the venue. The venue gave me the space for free because Kevin over there was like, Tiffany, I've got all female staff. I'd be ridiculous if I didn't help you out with this. Like, let me know what I can do to support you. Let's just make something happen. And it was just unreal. The media showed up. I shoulder tapped 5 of my friends that I knew kind of in the entrepreneurial space that had a story to share. And I said, would you share a glimpse of it for 10 minutes? And then I made the call out for door prizes. And that was insane. 50 door prizes were dropped off. And I'm talking like JBL speakers. I had a whole spa package. We had flower bouquets, like you name it, I had it. And instead of doing like door prize, you drop off your ticket, it's pretty boring. You got to sit there forever while people give away prizes. I thought, you know what? Let's really tap into who and what women are. Let's engage in some conversations. Let's share some stories with each other. So then I think I started Darwining the audience. And so the first, I'm like, oh, I need a volunteer. First person puts their hand up. I give them one of the prizes on the table at the back. So then like, I'm getting these women to share these super vulnerable things. And the one woman was like, I wasn't going to get out of bed today. I didn't want to get out of bed today. And she's like, I've never spoken on a microphone before. I'm so uncomfortable right now, but there's something about this space that wants me to share. And so I showed up. I showed up for International Women's Day, and I still look at footage from that day and get really emotional about it because 10 days, I cannot believe I pulled that off in 10 days with the help of some volunteers, Nicole Cook, Julie Peterson, Tiffany Dasquich from Rick Arts, and Karen Matlis came together and they were like, hey, how can we help? We heard you need hands. And so we had a little group chat and I'm just banging off ads and promoting it. And we're all just kind of coming together and coordinating it all. And it went off without a hitch. And I've already got the date locked in for Saturday, International Women's Day 2025. So I've been collecting my sponsors and just kind of quietly making some moves as I figure out exactly what I want to do. But the biggest driving force for that is last year we had 50 swag bags, which is pretty wild. Fusion Hair Salon, shout out, because she's like, hey, I've got these bags, I've got hairbrushes, I've got this, I've got that. Why don't we do some swag bags for the first 50 women that show up? We had women lined up out the door at 9 a.m. and the doors did not open until 10 a.m. I've
Cool.
got to do swag bags again this year, but the most important thing for me is keeping it accessible. So I would like to do this event every year and I want it to be free. I want women of all walks of life to be able to come and celebrate stories of other women and contribute their energy and their own stories to that space. And I don't want any barriers to that. So yeah, really drilling down on the sponsorship to see what I can get. And I had the photo booth last year. I had donuts. I had a custom drink. We had like all of these other things going on. So I'm looking to really elevate that this year. I'd love to see like an experience zone. Maybe I could get some friends at Euphoria Wellness Spa to do some like, I don't know, braids or blowouts and have some like nail painting or, like really get some fun stuff happening as well. But just really, I was honored and I cried a lot, to be honest. Like the community didn't have to hear me, you know, nobody needed to care about what I was doing and why I was doing it. But they did. And I think it was just, maybe from so many years of them being able to shoulder tap me for things and me be like, yeah, hey, how can I help? What can I do to support you? So I don't know if it was that reciprocity that really kind of bred the success of the event. But it ended up in the most beautiful space. And I think the rest of my life, I will remember that experience. And I remember when I walked out on the stage and the pit was full and the whole crowd was like up and around the sides and full up to the bar. And I took a good minute and just stood on the stage and took that in. And it was just I've got chills just talking about it, actually. It's just one of the most special, powerful, beautiful things that I have ever seen with a community coming together to support other women.
Yeah. It certainly was a sensational event, and my hat goes off to you because, like you say, in 10 days, you went from 0 to 60, and nothing but great reports and great feedback and great energy. So kudos to you, Tiffany. Good on you.
Thank you. I was like, I eat events for breakfast. Like that's, to be able to unpack an event like that. But you know what? Yeah, I did hundreds, if not 1,000. I've done probably 1,000 events in my life, from attending trade shows to manning trade shows to being the face of, to building trade shows, to helping with, the local business excellence awards, to all. I think the accumulation of all of those experiences just enabled me in that moment to like, boom, let's unpack an event. I could seriously do it in my sleep.
Yeah, well, you certainly got the gold star on that one.
Thank you.
This is another great segue. I understand that you get hired to MC events.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
So I think I've done a few weddings like in the past, but like very, very quietly. Weddings aren't my I just love business owners, right? So like I'm a sucker for entrepreneurs. So I feel like I just kind of naturally go that way. Anyway, yeah, so with the chamber, privy to the chamber, I did some voiceovers and stuff like that, and I've been a host, like with all my entire friend group. Like if something's happening, I'm the one that coordinates it and like leads the way, and I'm like, this is what we're doing, and this is what we're gonna do, and da 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 da. And I think because of my history as a child, just loving acting, I've been in a couple performances, super comfortable on stage. I think I grew up with a microphone in my mouth, and yeah, so I think my experience with the chamber, just because they kept plugging me into that space of emceeing, word just kind of spread that this was something that I'm good at. Um, I don't like boring events. So as an MC, I really put that extra effort in, right? To bring the energy, to make sure the time is tight, because you end up losing the audience if your events are way too long and all of that. But I think just word spread, and they were like, oh, Tiffany's got lots of energy. Let's see if she'll MC our things. And yeah, it just seems to be growing and growing and growing and growing. It seems like every month somebody reaches out to me to have an event emceed. And sometimes I'm like right in the weeds with them, helping them plan the event and like figuring out the agenda and building all of that. And sometimes they just do it all and hand it over to me. And I get it a few days beforehand, give it a look over and lift it off the page. But I love doing it. I absolutely love doing it. Like people fill my cup, right? So anytime I can be in a room that's such a warm reception, because I put that energy out and I always just seem to get it back. So it's really it's such a fulfilling experience for me, that I love doing it. So I'm almost always down to MC something.
well, and you're absolutely right. The MC can make or break the event. People would like to be there and they like to be part of it to a point, and then they want to eat or they want to dance or they want to have a break, or so really you've got a pretty pivotal role as to how that event's going to, and everybody loves an event that starts on time and ends on time, and it's
Nobody more than me. I am like, it is wild. Like I helped plan an event, and at first it was going to be 4 hours. And I was like, this is not going to be 4 hours. We're going to clean this up. And I'm behind stage and I'm emceeing and I'm messaging people like, okay, you've got 2 minutes, you've got 30 seconds. Like, and I'm just kind of like coordinating it all. And I don't know. I don't know if it's my own timing or I become this different beast when I'm like in that space. And I don't know what it is, but I have an impeccable way of just keeping things on time and like knowing when I need to stop talking and turn the reins over or cut the person off or whatever needs to be done. But I'm very much, I think just because I've been to thousands of events, right? So I know what it's like to be an attendee. I know what's interesting. I know what the flow should be, in order to keep that audience engaged. And I always like call people out in the audience, right? Like, God forbid I'm on stage and you make eye contact with me, because I will say something to you.
note to self.
Right? And it works. I think it just makes people feel connected, right? Connected to the event, connected to the audience. Because I think you can go to events and see the MC and just kind of not feel like part of the audience. But you want to feel like you're part of the event, a part of the organization that's happening, right? And when you have a really good MC that can kind of flex that superpower and bring the audience into the conversation and into the feeling and energy, it can be really impactful. Like it could be a really boring, dry event, but if you got the right MC plugged into that space, You're smooth sailing. Meg Murphy is also like,
Oh,
oh my
yeah.
God, a powerhouse when it comes to it. And she's
Hmm.
just brilliant. But yeah, there's kind of, several people I think of in that space. But Meg stands out to me the strongest. Like she's just a force to be reckoned with. And I've got deep, deep appreciation and respect for that woman.
Yeah. Very quick and, just smart and funny and,
So funny.
oh, yes. Yeah, very true. Well, Tiffany, it's been really great talking to you. And, I know we could go on and on because there's so many great things happening in Peterborough that you're part of that people love to hear about. What I like to do to try to wrap everything up is I like to send over, or like to ask you like 5 rapid fire questions. So if you're up for that, I've got 5 questions for you.
Let's go. Let's ride.
Okay,
Let's
let's
go,
see.
Jane.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Laptop or tablet?
Neither. Cell phone.
Okay. Rock or blues? It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm more like a pop, I think. Pop and hip hop.
Candy or chips?
Both salty and sweet. You eat both at the same time. Last night I was eating peanut covered Reese's Pieces with original Pringles.
Ooh, that sounds
Delicious. Highly recommend.
Reynolds or Gosling?
Reynolds.
Yeah, yeah. They're both great.
They're
But
both, yeah, and they're both
yeah,
beautiful
they're
human
both
beings that
great,
do
but yeah,
wonderful things for
right.
Canada as well. But yeah, if it comes to one
Absolutely.
or the other, yeah. I guess the one that looks more like my husband.
Tiffany, thank you so much for being with us today on Chez Fleur. We love to talk about women doing things in our community and in the world and in our country. And you certainly are rocking it and rocking it well. And you may be into pop music, but you're rocking it. So I
Thank you.
appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule because, as we've heard, you are busy and you're just so terrific that I really appreciate that you had time to be here today. Watch Tiffany on the Tiffany Show on Kojiko here in Peterborough. She has a fabulous show and she's a fabulous person and so grateful that she was with us today. If you're watching for the first time, we're so glad that you were here. If you are a return viewer to Chez Fleur podcast, thank you very much for coming to watch us again. We celebrate women, we celebrate small business, and we celebrate entrepreneurs. So thank you. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Tiffany.
Thank you for having me. Such a pleasure.
Well, great to have you here.